There are places INFJs never want to be, and it's not always because they're shy, anxious, or reserved. It's because something inside them just knows, an intuitive nudge, a quiet discomfort that whispers, "You don't belong here." It's not logical, and it's not easy to explain, even to themselves. They'll walk into a room and feel something is off before anyone says a word. They'll sense an atmosphere that feels emotionally loud, energetically polluted, or spiritually hollow. And in those moments, they'd rather vanish than force their soul to stay where it feels unwelcome. If you're an INFJ, you know this truth deep in your bones, that your energy is sensitive, sacred, and selective. The world doesn't understand how deeply environments affect you, how the wrong setting can drain your spirit faster than 1,000 words ever could. So you withdraw. Not because you're antisocial, but because you're protecting something rare, your inner equilibrium, your intuitive peace, your emotional clarity. Today, we're going to explore the 7 places INFJs instinctively avoid, even if they can't always explain why. These aren't just physical locations. They're energetic spaces that test the INFJ's sensitivity, empathy, and emotional intelligence to their limits. You'll probably recognize them, because you've walked into them before, and something inside you quietly screamed, "Get out." 1. Crowded social gatherings that lack genuine connection. INFJs can walk into a room full of people laughing, talking, and smiling, and still feel completely alone. It's not the noise that bothers them most, it's the emotional dissonance. They can feel when everyone is pretending, when laughter doesn't reach the eyes, when conversations circle around small talk instead of sincerity. Their intuition instantly scans the emotional atmosphere, and if it finds no depth, no real exchange, it starts to shut down. To most people, a party is an escape, but to an INFJ, it's often an emotional overload wrapped in artificial joy. The smell of forced cheerfulness, the pressure to perform, the shallow repetition of, "How are you? I'm fine," drains them. They sense all the hidden insecurities, the unspoken competition, the social masks layered over everyone's faces. And in that sea of surface-level interaction, their soul starts to suffocate. They might smile politely, engage briefly, and then suddenly feel that familiar urge, to disappear quietly, to find an empty corner, to go home and breathe in silence. They leave not because they dislike people, but because they crave realness. The irony is, when they finally find one genuine person among the crowd, they could stay for hours. But until that moment, every small talk feels like sandpaper against their soul. 2. Places filled with conflict and confrontation. INFJs feel emotional tension like heat radiating from fire. When they walk into a space where people are arguing, criticizing, or gossiping, their entire nervous system reacts. They can sense hostility before anyone raises their voice, because to them, conflict doesn't need sound. It vibrates through the air like static electricity. This is why they avoid workplaces, homes, or social circles where conflict lingers like a shadow. It's not that they can't stand up for themselves. They can, and when pushed too far, their quiet fury is terrifying. But constant conflict eats away at their peace. The emotional noise in such environments makes them hyper-aware, scanning every tone, every facial twitch, trying to predict when the next emotional storm will break. For INFJs, this is mental torture. Their empathy turns into a curse in hostile environments because they absorb too much. They feel everyone's fear, anger, and insecurity as if it were their own. So they avoid these places like emotional landmines, preferring solitude over chaos. Peace isn't just a preference for them, it's survival. When they retreat from these spaces, people often misjudge them as weak or overly sensitive, but in truth, they're practicing energetic self-defense. They're choosing emotional health over unnecessary battles. Because for the INFJ, harmony isn't a luxury, it's oxygen. 3. Superficial work environments that drain their purpose. INFJs are not built to survive in places that run purely on hierarchy, profit, or politics. They crave meaning. They need to believe that what they're doing has a purpose beyond numbers and competition. But when they find themselves in workplaces where people only chase promotions, gossip in hallways, and value appearances over integrity, something inside them quietly dies. They start to feel like ghosts, physically present, but spiritually detached. Their creativity fades, their motivation shrinks, and they start questioning why they even showed up. The INFJ spirit cannot thrive in a system that rewards manipulation over sincerity or ambition over empathy. They avoid such workplaces because they see through the illusion of success. They know that a life without depth is a slow form of emotional decay. So while others climb ladders and play corporate games, INFJs are the ones sitting in the corner, wondering why no one sees how empty it all is. They'd rather work quietly on something meaningful, even if it pays less, than sell their soul to a machine that runs on ego. And when they finally walk away, it's not impulsive, it's instinctual. The INFJ doesn't quit. They simply stop participating in what no longer aligns with their inner truth. 4. Energetically heavy or spiritually empty spaces. There are places where INFJs just feel something dark, even if nothing visibly wrong is happening. It could be an old building, a friend's home, or even a cafe. The air feels thick, the atmosphere feels drained, and their intuition starts warning them that something isn't right. Most people ignore such feelings, but INFJs don't, because their intuition isn't just strong, it's sacred. They pick up on energy imbalances, unresolved grief, hidden hostility, emotional residue left behind by others. They can walk into a room and feel sadness that doesn't belong to them. And while they can't always explain it, their body knows. Their stomach tightens, their chest feels heavy, their mind gets cloudy. So they leave. No explanation. No drama. Just quiet distance. People often label them as mysterious or dramatic, but what they don't understand is that INFJs live energetically. They sense the invisible. They know when a space is emotionally contaminated. And they refuse to stay in places that drain their light. It's not fear, it's awareness. It's the INFJ's silent rebellion against spiritual numbness. They don't just want beauty in the world, they need vibrational peace. That's why they're drawn to nature, libraries, sacred spaces, or places that feel alive with positive energy. These places recharge them because they're free of masks, lies, and emotional noise. 5. Environments where they're constantly observed or judged. INFJs value authenticity so much that being around judgmental people feels like being trapped in a hall of mirrors where every reflection distorts who they really are. They can sense when eyes are watching, when thoughts are being formed about them, when energy shifts from curiosity to criticism. And even though they try to ignore it, they can't. Their empathy is too sharp, too tuned in. They avoid places where they feel they have to perform, where they can't simply exist without being analyzed or misunderstood. Maybe it's a workplace with gossiping coworkers, a family dinner filled with subtle comparisons, or even social media environments where everyone pretends. To an INFJ, these places feel like emotional prisons. Every move feels monitored, every silence misinterpreted. And because they internalize energy so deeply, they begin to mirror that scrutiny inward, questioning themselves, shrinking their authenticity just to avoid being misread. So they retreat. They choose invisibility over performance, peace over approval. They find sanctuary in being unseen because that's where their truest self feels free to breathe. When they avoid these places, it's not insecurity, it's self-preservation. They're not running from people's opinions, they're protecting their authenticity from distortion. 6. Loud, sensory overloaded spaces. There's a certain kind of chaos that INFJs simply cannot function in, not because they're delicate, but because their minds are too layered. When the external world becomes too loud, their internal world starts to collapse. Loud bars, bustling malls, constant notifications, flashing lights, these environments overstimulate the INFJ's nervous system. They absorb everything. The laughter, the tension, the smell of stress in the air. Their minds process every detail simultaneously, turning a simple trip to a busy store into a draining psychological event. They'll often say they're tired after such experiences, but what they really mean is, I've been absorbing too much energy that wasn't mine. They crave calmness, softness, space to think and feel deeply. In a noisy environment, their inner clarity gets buried beneath the static. So they avoid it, instinctively, unapologetically. They prefer the sound of rain over chatter, the glow of candlelight over fluorescent brightness, the rhythm of silence over noise. People might call them too sensitive, but sensitivity isn't weakness, it's awareness turned all the way up. It's the ability to notice what others overlook. And for INFJs, that awareness must be protected if they want to stay sane in a world that never stops screaming. 7. Places that don't align with their inner truth. The last place INFJs avoid is the most mysterious. It's any space, situation, or relationship that doesn't feel aligned with their soul. They might not know why at first. Maybe the person seems kind, maybe the opportunity seems perfect, maybe the setting looks beautiful. But something deep within whispers, this isn't for you. And because INFJs are intuitive feelers, they trust that whisper, even when it defies logic. They've learned the hard way that ignoring their intuition leads to emotional pain. So when their inner voice says no, they listen, even if they can't explain it to anyone else. They avoid certain relationships that look good on paper, certain jobs that promise success, certain communities that appear inviting, because they feel the energetic mismatch. Their intuition is not about fear, it's about frequency. They sense when something vibrates differently from their truth. This often leads others to misunderstand them, to accuse them of being flaky, indecisive, or overly cautious. But INFJs aren't avoiding life. They're choosing alignment over attachment. They know that peace isn't found in logic, but in resonance. To the INFJ, the right place feels like home, calm, honest, safe. The wrong place feels like static, noisy, confusing, disorienting. And they'll always choose silence over noise, solitude over false belonging, authenticity over acceptance. If you're an INFJ, maybe you've wondered why you can't tolerate certain places others seem fine with. Maybe you've blamed yourself for being too sensitive, too cautious, too strange. But the truth is, your avoidance isn't weakness, it's intelligence. Emotional, spiritual, and energetic intelligence. You know when your spirit is in danger, even if your mind can't explain why. You were built to protect your peace because your mind is a mirror for the world's energy, and not every reflection deserves space within you. INFJs are not just sensitive souls. They are emotional guardians, intuitive healers, and silent observers who see what others overlook. Their avoidance is not escape, it's preservation. It's the art of listening to their inner compass when logic fails to see the invisible. So the next time you find yourself walking away from a place, a person, or a situation without knowing why, trust it. That's your intuition shielding you from an energy your heart cannot afford to carry. You are not crazy. You are not cold. You are conscious. And your sensitivity is not a flaw, it's your spiritual radar guiding you toward peace, authenticity, and truth. Because for an INFJ, peace isn't found by fitting in everywhere. It's found by honoring the sacred instinct that whispers, "This isn't your place." If this spoke to your INFJ heart, remember, you're not alone in feeling things others can't explain. You're not broken, you're rare. So take a moment, breathe, and honor the invisible wisdom that keeps you aligned with what's real. Like, share, and subscribe if this message resonated with your soul, because somewhere out there, another INFJ needs to hear that it's okay to walk away from the noise and choose the quiet that feels like home.